You know, guys, we can talk all we want about doing B or Faker or Fun Plus or G2 or Worlds experience in general, but what I want to talk about during this Esports Talk After Dark show, what is up, people? Hope you're all doing well. I want to talk about who exactly lost the most at League of Legends Worlds this year in 2019, and I think the answer is quite obvious. That's going to be Griffin over in the LCK, and also following Riot Korea and other investigations around the organization, it is not even close. Griffin lost more than anyone did this year at Worlds. And for anyone unaware of their story, you can find other videos out there about this. We covered it a couple of times, but a general gist of what has now happened, guys, following accusations of the organization, specifically one of their directors, that being a guy named as Cho in this case, was accused of blackmailing and potentially extorting one of their former members and junglers. That's going to be Kanavi on this roster. Now, what the accusations, and again, I feel like until stuff is actually confirmed, although following Riot Korea investigation and everything that's changed inside the organization, I think it's fair to assume a lot of things we're talking about are likely true, just not fully out there confirmed. Now, that's going to be about their former jungler Kanavi apparently being extorted into accepting a deal with a new team. If you guys had not heard about this, I called it a prison contract, where apparently Cho had discovered that Kanavi was actually in talks with other teams out there, but what apparently their former coach CV Max was saying is that no, it was not Kanavi talking to other teams, it was other teams talking to Kanavi, which Kanavi then confided in their former coach CV Max about. CV Max said don't respond. Later, it was Cho and the team management apparently coming to Kanavi and saying, hey, you're talking to other teams, that's obstruction, we're going to hold it against you unless you sign with that team. Now, why they would maybe want that is because of the financial benefit. If you can now force a player into a contract on loan with another organization, that organization is paying a hefty transfer fee potentially for that said player. And with this case, I think they were actually going to JD Gaming, send Kanavi over there for at least a couple of years. And if they could also force Kanavi into that contract with lower salaries, they could possibly in the future get a higher transfer fee or buyout amount for the player, and thus they benefit from forcing him in to that said contract. It was a giant allegation, huge allegation at the time, that was worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, which has now been brought to light, luckily enough. Their troubles actually did continue. For all of you guys who are not aware of the Griffin success in the LCK, over the last few splits, it's been pretty solid. When it comes time for making Worlds, though, not near solid enough and non-existent enough, especially for a Korean organization out there. And this year, when they finally did make Worlds, they decided to let CV Max go, even though it was going to be his first Worlds appearance, or I think maybe second, I think first, though, with this lineup as well. He finally made Worlds, which is what they wanted and needed out of this championship level team. And then before Worlds, what do? They let CV Max go, and the investigation goes crazy. And during almost their entire Worlds run, this investigation continued, and it's been pretty crazy because you can imagine if it was a North American or European or a Brazilian team out there, I'd be covering it, and it would probably get a lot more exposure. We don't really tend to that, the Asian region viewership too well over here, but this issue has to be talked about. It's a gigantic issue that was still ongoing, has now finally somewhat been settled. During the entire time, by the way, if you're wondering what JD Gaming was saying, both sides, when it comes to Kanavi and CV Max versus the Griffin management versus JD Gaming, all three sides were saying different things. JD Gaming the entire time was like, hey, guys, we need a jungler. We agreed to have Kanavi on loan. You know, you guys were all present when we made the agreements, and now that apparently will not be having. Actually, Kanavi has been released as a free agent. Following the departure of CV Max, Kanavi was also let go on top of that. So you lose a former coach, you lose a former player, and then it goes on throughout Worlds, which, by the way, ironically enough, it was a pretty decent run for the team themselves. They make it out of groups, but no further than the quarterfinals. They lost to Invictus Gaming. Ironically enough, the reason why many people accuse them of losing is a player known as Sword, that's a top laner, who was apparently Cho, the director's top choice, as compared to their former coach CV Max, who favored Doran in the top lane, and it was actually Sword, Cho's choice, who many people accuse of losing that series against Invictus Gaming. That's a different point to make. Just thought I would bring it up just for the fun of it. But it gets even better for many people out there. The director Cho has now stepped down apparently and resigned from the organization. I think rightfully so, following all these accusations. I'm not sure if the investigations will continue to actually see what happened inside this hectic organization. He has now stepped down and accordingly also being wrapped up in a couple of lawsuits, the first of which I believe is an old person back in the day who had now recognized him because all these stories have gone public again and remembered that Cho owed him $20,000, or at least the lawsuit now now against Cho is calling for $20,000 in damages against the guy. Best of luck, Cho. Speaking of lawsuits involving Cho, though, he is now also, according to sources, suing the former coach, CV Max, for God knows what. The coach pretty much just came forward with all these allegations, so we'll see if that lawsuit does go through. We have director Cho stepping down from Griffin or resigning. This is it's an amazing story, a hectic story at that, but it does continue as the other manager and other upper figure in the management staff there at Griffin. That's going to be Dak Go, and I do apologize for mispronunciation. He has now also stepped down, and it does continue one last time, guys. Still 8 now also. Still 8, by the way, is the parent company of Griffin, their primary sponsor in form of funding. That's why they do exist. They have now also announced their owner of Griffin is also leaving this organization, and even further, lastly, the current roster is set to rebuild and at least undergo some changes for next season. A former coach, a former player, JD Gaming's pissed off. Your managing director, another management staff, your owner, and your team are all making changes. I think I can guarantee here, guys, pretty easily, Griffin lost by far and away the most at League of Legends Worlds this past year. But I must say, I wish them the best of luck in that rebuilding and hopefully finding a better staff that treats their players better, because we here on this show have talked about several Korean organizations out there mistreating players. And Griffin, sadly enough, they fell into that category, and they fell way into it. Until next time, I hope you guys all enjoy breaking down esports and gaming news here every single day. If there's a story you guys want me to cover, I will cover it as soon as possible. Just drop me a DM or drop a comment down below. Until next time, take care of yourselves. I'll see you all back here sometime soon. I hope you guys enjoyed Esports Talk After Dark. It's my favorite part of the day. All right, bye.